Yeah, my name is Dan Smith. I am a co-founder and principal of the Porterhouse KC. Well, my entrepreneurial journey goes back to, when I was in high school. But after I graduated high school, started college, me and my current co-founder, Sharon Thompson, we actually started a maintenance company back in the day. And that maintenance company, we were just trying to figure out ways to solve problems, right? And they had an incubator, small business incubator, at the Lincoln Building, right on 18th and Vine, and it was a great resource for us as young entrepreneurs. And so as we got older, the entrepreneurial itch, we ended up dissolving that company, but entrepreneurial itch stayed with us. And so we're always trying to figure out ways to solve problems. Probably about almost 8 years ago, we recognized that there was a problem. There was a delineation between resources we felt like on the west side of the city versus the east side of the city. And when Google Fiber came, it really kind of exacerbated that difference. And so we wanted to figure out why. So we went down this rabbit hole of figuring out why there was such a difference between the resources that were provided on the east side and the west side. And so what we came up with, there was a lot of disparities, obviously, but one that we felt like that we could actually have some kind of effort or we could actually help would be in the education side, right? So low-hanging fruit, if you will. So we figured, let's do some workshops. We wanted to create some workshop-style sessions based on entrepreneurship. And we actually partnered with an organization called Chess Inc., and they actually let us use their space. So we had these sessions right on the bus line, right off of 31st Street, and the vision kind of grew from there. Yeah, so what we did is we started with some of the easier topics, some of the things that folks always felt like they have problems with, which is marketing, branding, advertising, and financials, right? And so we hosted these sessions, but when we did the sessions, we actually created surveys. So at each session, right afterwards, we made sure that a lot of the folks in the space were actually completing surveys because we wanted to know what their needs were, right? And so after compiling some months worth of research, we found that most of the folks that were actually attending our sessions were retail-based businesses. And we found that a lot of those retail-based businesses didn't have some of the resources that a lot of the say high-growth, scalable businesses were getting, right? As it relates to just sessions to learn, education things, financial stuff, whatever the case may be. Sorry. So what we took from that was we needed to hone in and get a little bit more granular as it relates to the folks that we were targeting. And so the folks that we ended up targeting were Main Street businesses. So these are businesses that are like restaurants, retail-based businesses, mom and pop shops, things like that, because we felt like that was the area that we could have the most impact. And so, like I said, derived from that research that we did, the surveys that we did, this is where we came to really getting granular with who we support and who we serve. Yeah, so the cool thing about the way that we kind of approached this was we didn't approach it with any preconceived idea or thought or notions. We truly wanted our target demographic to actually answer those questions for us. We didn't want to assume anything. So that's a part of the reason why we started surveying so early. Our goal wasn't to survey to potentially try to figure out ways to get grants or financial support or anything like that, because that was the furthest from anything that we even thought that was possible for us at that point. We just wanted to be able to provide them a quality educational situation or environment. And so we actually didn't go into any kind of preconceived thoughts or notions or anything like that. We literally were drove by our demographic and the folks that supported us. I actually started before the Porterhouse KC. I started working with the Full Employment Council. So I was an equal opportunity officer at the Full Employment Council. A lot of mistakes that entrepreneurs make are based in emotional decisions. Some folks have jobs that they're just really tired of, that they're frustrated with, or whatever the case may be. So they quit their jobs and they just go full time into entrepreneurship. I think that's one of the worst things that you could do. I think you just have to figure out ways to make the full-time job work. You have to have a solid income to be able to do the things. You have to do the things that you have to do the things that you want to do, right? I wanted to be able to help my community. I wanted to be able to help some of the entrepreneurs in our space. I felt like I had the knowledge base, I had the education, I had the connections and all this other stuff, but at the same time, I didn't have the capital means to do that, right? So what did we do? I stayed with the Full Employment Council for about 3 years into starting the Porterhouse KC because, like I said, I didn't want to make a rash decision based on emotions or anything like that. So I think a pro tip would be make sure that you take care of home before you jump out and try to save the world. Or, if it's a product-based business or any kind of other business, really have that financial thought or security in mind first before making that decision and before jumping out there. It took us a while to get to this point where we really understood the root cause and purpose for our organization. We knew we wanted to support entrepreneurs on the east side of the city. We knew that there was a lack of resource, lack of financial resource, educational resource, mentorship, and all these other things. But we had to go a little deeper to figure out what exactly is the root reason for all of this need, right, and the necessity. And so what we came up with and what we found is the social determinants of health. And so when you talk about social determinants of health, you wonder what does that mean? Well, technically, it is like, to sum up, it is the lifespan of an individual in a particular area. And so the social determinants of health actually help either increase the lifespan of an individual in a particular area, or it is the reason why that person doesn't live as long as they probably could on average because of the lack of those things. So what are the social determinants of health? One is education, right? Having a quality education, having the opportunity for childcare, great childcare. Another one is healthcare, right? Having access to hospitals, health centers with quality care. Another one is food, right? Not being in a food desert, right? And then another one is economic viability. The ability to either make money from a job or the ability to make money from your entrepreneurial endeavors. So we try to target all of those social determinants of health, either by indirectly or directly. So I say indirectly by supporting organizations that actually do those things, or we also do it ourselves. So we have a partnership with Our Healthy Jackson County. We have a partnership with Kansas City School District, Raytown School District, Center School Districts. We've done things with them, UMKC, KU, and like I said, we have other support mechanisms that we put out there to support some of those other areas. This is the thing that you have to think about as an entrepreneur. You also have to figure out what your talents and abilities are, right? And be able to really dive in and enhance those to be able to do the work that we do. And that's a part of this thing, right? We often squirrel all over the place with potential ideas and folks that come to us with great partnership ideas and things like that. And for moments, all of these things, we always ponder and process. But then we always have to come back to, is it actually going to benefit or help what it is that we're trying to accomplish, right? And so what we realize and recognize is that we have a great formula, and we want to make sure that we're very singular in our approach, because what we do know is that when you venture out to do 7,000 different things, we recognize that you can't be as good as you would be if you were singular, because you're stretched so thin across these other areas. So we're trying to just stay as singular as possible. I don't think that we felt like the need ever was different than the goal. But I think that the conversation about getting granular, that popped up, right, more often than we thought than it would. And so what do I mean by that? Now, there's a lot of tech-based businesses that are out there, right, that are high growth. They're focused on high growth and either being sold, bought, or acquired, or just, like continuous growth, right? And so we had to figure out like our target audience, our target demographic, and the folks that we work on. Their goal is to also grow, but their goal is to scale deeper into the community than it is to scale up and create an investable, sellable business, right? And so that was another part of the process for us. We had to figure out who exactly does this person look like that we're trying to actually help and create additional opportunities for. So I think the tech versus Main Street business, I think that was something that we had to actually narrow even further. So there's this saying, I don't know if you've ever read this book, it's called The Alchemist. It says, basically, favor is in your path as long as you are on the path to your personal legend, right? And this is the Alchemist book. It's a really good business book. It's a lot of lessons in that book. But I say that because we didn't really have a lot of wiggle because we didn't have an initial thought or process as to what this will be in 5 years. Our goal was to solve the problem that we were solving that was right in front of our face. The opportunities that we got along the way to be introduced to this ecosystem is what allowed us to expand and grow to where we are today. We got the opportunity to learn more about what entrepreneur support organizations were. We didn't even know what that was at the time. We got to fly out to or drive to some other cities that had some strong ecosystems and strong organizations. We got to learn from them. But we took time. We took weekends. I still was working full time, right? So we had to take weekends to go to on these trips to learn more about these organizations. YouTube University is the best place that you can go to learn about everything, right? And so I know that's tough. The tough thing is most people will have multiple iterations of a project or business from where they start to where they end up. But from us, because we went about this in a way that basically this whole 7 years we've been in discovery mode, right? We're discovering need and process and purpose. And I don't think that'll ever change. We'll continually be in discovery mode. And our goal is to eventually get to a point where what we do is replicable. But at this point, it's continuous. Discovery mode is continuous. So that's always been our approach, is practicality, right? Keeping our overhead extremely low. Our goal. So it's easy when you get into a business and you start a business and you have a little bit of capital of some sort to put dollars in spaces that you think you need to put dollars in, rather than just kind of sitting still and allowing the business to dictate where those dollars need to go, right? And so we put ourselves in that position where we were allowed to let the dollars dictate to where we went, right? Ideation, some tips: just throw everything against the wall. That doesn't mean you implement everything. That means you put everything out there. Even the worst ideas, put them on the wall. Give yourself time to just play, right? Just get a whiteboard or pen and pad, whatever the case may be. A napkin, I know there's this analogy about the back of a napkin, right? There's a lot of businesses that have been created based on notes that were formulated on the back of a napkin at a lunch or a dinner. Take time to just write. I use a notes app in my iPhone. I got notes, I got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of notes with random ideas. Again, bring that back to the team. See what makes sense. See what's possible for your team. If it's something that's not too exuberant, just try to figure it out. Let's see if we can implement some of these things. If not, if it's capital intensive, if it's very costly for you to try it, maybe it's not time for you to play in that world yet. But I'd say that the most important thing in the ideation space is trying to get out as much as possible onto a whiteboard or a pen and pad and see what's viable, see what's possible. So it was an epiphany initially. And then the more I learned about this ecosystem in the space, it became the steps, right? The good thing about ignorance is it's bliss. And what do I mean by that? If you go into something and not know the rules and processes for something, you're not limited to the rules and processes for something. I initially did not know the rules to this game, right? To working in entrepreneurship space. I didn't know the rules. So it made us dangerous. It gave us a great opportunity to do things that we probably wouldn't have been able to do if we did work within the lines. So ignorance is bliss in that regard. And so I would try to keep that as long as possible. As an entrepreneur, keep the ignorance is bliss mindset as long as you can. And if you do something and you make a mistake, it's fine. You can ask for forgiveness later, but at least you tried. And that's kind of the way that we pushed initially. And like I said, afterwards, after we learned this process, it allowed us to still play in this dangerous space of not knowing, but at least we have concepts. We understand terms. We get all that now. So now we can really play in this space. The hardest part of ideation, I think, is when you get stuck and you just don't know what the next step is, right? But that's when you again, YouTube University. You go to YouTube, or you call up a friend, or you go to a workshop, or you attend a meeting, or you have lunch meetings or coffee meetings or whatever. Go to the coffee shop. Immerse yourself into space. Don't be alone, right? A lot of times when we're alone in our own thoughts, especially when we get stagnant, I think that's where the ideation phase could potentially stop. It grows the more that you're out and you allow yourself to be immersed in culture and environments. I think that helps spur innovation and thought. So I think that's the hardest part, but there's also a solution to it, so it's good. So literally going back to the notes, we created the initial workshops with this idea of 12 months, a session a month, surveys, follow-ups, and being topical, right? Have value in the topic. So everything that we did wasn't based in brand and logo designs, right? Because everybody wants to play in brand and logo designs, but nobody wants to play in finance, nobody wants to play in law, nobody wants to play in strategic development or alignment. So those things, we had to make sure that we interwove the fun stuff with some of the hard things to keep people coming back, right? And so our initial, but we didn't find that initially, right? So we hosted our very first one was about marketing. We had a lot of people there. Our second one was about finance. Kind of dwindled a little bit. Our third one we had was literally about accounting. And we only had like 3 people at this session total. And it was at a point where Sharon and I, my co-founder, and I thought, well, maybe this is not for us. Maybe this is not our thing. But then we had to start assessing why, right? And we had to figure it out. And that was what we determined, that people don't like to talk about accounting. Like, that's not a fun topic. People don't like to talk about finances. That's not a fun topic. What's fun is, what's my logo gonna look like? Or what's the name of my company? Or what color schemes can I use? Or what is our brand? Like, that's all fun stuff. And so we had to figure out better ways to interweave the fun and not so fun stuff to keep folks coming back and keep them engaged. We did not go the MVP route. We didn't try to get affirmation or be affirmed by anyone and try to get, our value prop was being created as we worked. So we went a very non-traditional route, mind you. So I wouldn't suggest or recommend anyone doing it the way that we did it. But literally, we used money out of our own pockets we've never gotten a bank loan ever. We used our money out of our own pockets for the first 4 years of our organization. And eventually, the Kaufman Foundation kind of heard about the things that we were doing, and we end up meeting and growing a relationship. And from there, it kind of blossomed, and we started learning more about ESOs and all this other stuff that was out there. But we had no clue that this world existed. We just knew there was a problem that we wanted to try to figure out ways to solve. Our goal wasn't necessarily to be a money-making business. Our goal was literally to solve a problem, and it ended up that we put ourselves in a position to be able to be a grant-funded organization. So the process that we went through, like I said, we created these workshops. From when we created these workshops, we realized there was more to this puzzle, right? And so from the workshops, we decided, hey, we may want to host classes, maybe on a more frequent than 12-month basis or once a month basis, right? Maybe 12 weeks, maybe 15 weeks. But we needed a curriculum. So we started sourcing, figuring out what that looks like. And so we started meeting organizations that actually had curriculum that they created. We started really diving into their business curriculum. I should go back and say I do have my master's. I have an MBA, so I have a master's in business administration. So this stuff that I'm 100% familiar with and comfortable with. So we just had to figure out what made sense for us, right? And so that was the phase. We went through workshop style programming to classroom-based programming to now doing classroom-based programming and practical application in the space that we're in here at the 811 space. So our goal here is we're transforming the folks that have been through our workshops, through our classes. Now they're gonna be able to practically apply the things, the lessons learned, and still continue to grow and learn. And then with the hopes of them being able to go out into the community and be able to open their own spaces. So this is gonna be a space that allows them to learn here more, fail faster, and be able to go and create their own from here. When we talk about MVP and investors and being investable businesses and things like that, that's part of the reason why we do what we do, because we know that most of the businesses that we support are not in that space, right? They're not getting the larger loans. They're not getting investments from investors or whatnot. They're not getting there's no series investments into these businesses. So a lot of us have to figure it out. And again, that's why it's important to keep a job or keep another source of income while you're starting your business, while you're trying to grow your business, because most of us are going to be self-funded, right? We had to get to that point. We were self-funded to a point, but then we also had to start figuring out what the lay of the land was and what the landscape was. And so that allowed us to be able to be grant funded, right? And so we knew that a lot of our services were going to need to be grant funded. So we had to figure out, like, what do grantors, what do foundations look for? What do they want, right? And so we're not looking at what a bank would want. We are looking at what foundations would want, right? What's the ROI for them investing in us, right? Because there's still an ROI, even though we're a nonprofit, when they invest in us. And our outputs matter, right? So how many people are we graduating from our program? How many of these folks are actually getting business loans? How many of these folks are actually have business bank accounts? How many of these folks have brick and mortars? What can we do to support them further in these spaces? We actually provide technical assistance dollars. Like, who's utilizing that technical dollar assistance? So lawyers, accountants, marketers, we pay for those things, right? Those are all outputs and outcomes that we measure. So we had to even though we didn't have an MVP, we still had to figure out how to get the opportunity to receive funding to be able to do the work that we're doing. The first time that we actually hosted a workshop, it was so nerve-wracking, because who are we? Imposter syndrome sets in, the who are you, the why you, are you skilled enough? Do you have enough background to be talking about those things? So all of that stuff, is a part of the thought process while this is happening. And I'd say that, what allowed us to get through it was, first of all, we're stubborn, right? So we understand that we're stubborn. But secondly, we didn't allow the internal thoughts to dictate what our next goal or next step was, right? That's like, I used to have a fear of public speaking. And I used to literally say no. Like, anytime we got an opportunity for a public speaking engagement, I literally was debilitated by it and would not do it, because I would start sweating, armpits, all that stuff, right? I use that as an example. Like, if I was debilitated by it, we wouldn't be able to get to the point that we are now, right? And so through that workshop, we got to overcome a lot of fears, a lot of angst, a lot of anxieties. And it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be, right? Once we got done with it. So that was a big hurdle that we had to get through on that very first interaction with our target folks and the people that we're trying to support. We understand when we make mistakes. So I'll give an example. Last year we did a mentoring program. So before, we did a 12-week mentoring program, and we were like, 12 weeks is probably not enough time over a length of time to be able to create, like, the dynamic relationships that we're trying to create between mentor and mentee. And so we, with conversations with a couple of the organizations that are mentor focused, we were like, yeah, let's figure out a way to spread this over a 12-month time frame, right? So we went from 12 weeks in our mentorship program to 12 months. What was the worst decision that we could have made, right? But we wouldn't have been able to figure that out unless we actually attempted it and tried it, right? And why was it bad? Because there wasn't enough interaction in that 12-month time frame, right? So in that 12-week, we had back-to-back interactions, and it went so quick. In a year, it's like you have one interaction, then you have another interaction a month later, right? And so we realized that, and that's kind of the way that we have to figure out ways to adapt and adjust. So we realized that, 12 months is probably too long for our program. And so our mentoring program. And so now we've adapted it to 6 months. So community feedback, surveys, we do surveys still. We literally learn from our target demo, the folks that we support and help. They're the ones that teach us and let us know what they actually need in a lot of ways, right? But if you come and say you just need marketing, we know that's not it. That's not the answer. But we do learn, like I said, by trial by fire, and then also, everyone around us. From an entrepreneur's perspective, I think sometimes we think we think too big and too broad. We challenge our entrepreneurs to just scale back a little bit, talk to family and friends, right? Like, it doesn't have to be your whole social media following, right? Like, you can literally test a product. Like, if you like to cook and you think you want to open up a restaurant, and you got the best apple pies ever, right? Let your family help you determine if that apple pie is the best pie ever or not, because they're going to be truthful with you, right? Believe it or not. Yeah, if it's good, your family's going to be like, this is the best thing ever. And if it's bad, they're going to tell you it's bad, right? So allow that constructive criticism to come in. And I know that's nerve-wracking too, but in order to get to the next phase, in order to continue to grow and get to where you want to be, we have to get through the hard parts. And that's one of the hard parts, right? Getting that constructive feedback to get to the next space, right? Accept it as constructive feedback. Don't be offended by it. Your people love you. Everybody loves you. We're going to get you to the next phase. But in order to get there, we got to go through these bumps in the road. So something I used this saying some years ago, but it still holds true today. Some of the most beautiful things on earth are on the other side of fear. And I say that because ideas, dreams are always the easiest thing. They're the funnest thing that you can have, right? The fear is taking the step into application, right? Don't be afraid of application. When you start applying, you'll start to recognize that there are changes that need to happen. Don't be afraid of those changes. Don't be afraid of leaning into those changes that's needed, right? It is for the betterment of your business. So at the end of the day, the most beautiful things in life are on the other side of fear. So when you recognize that, it'll allow yourself to get through the dreaming, get through the ideation, get through the fun side, and go and not be debilitated by what's next, right? So it's a pro tip. I think the decision, and it's more personal, but I think the decision to leave my 9-to-5 was probably one of the hardest professional things that I've had to do in my professional career, right? Like, I've been used to my whole life the security of insurance, the security of a check that's coming in every week or every month or whatever the case may be, the security of all those things. So I think that the hardest thing that I've been able to do and to pivot would have been to make the decision to leave my 9-to-5 to go full time with the Porterhouse KC. Now, mind you, at that point, we did have grant funding. So we did have some opportunities for income. So it wasn't just me jumping out without any kind of support, financial support, but I did leave the comfort and confidence of a 9-to-5 into an obscure abyss that what we call currently entrepreneurship. I think a part of our launch was, we didn't spend a lot of time on branding or anything like that. We kind of outsourced that stuff. We were like, we like the color orange. We're gonna rock with the color orange. PHKC is it. A friend of ours, Hurston Fales, did our very first logo design. I actually created our first website myself, which was really bad, but I created it. And that was it. Like, we literally just opened up for for our first cohort. And it was during COVID, believe it or not. And so our first small business development program cohort was online via Zoom. That wasn't the initial intention. The initial intention obviously was to have it in person, in a space and all that good stuff. But no, yeah, it was online. But when it started, it was very anticlimactic, right? It was like this really big rush of anxiety and adrenaline and all this stuff. And then we were on Zoom. You know what I mean? Like it was very like, all right, well, see you for the next class, you know? But the way that we were able to continue to develop the relationships with a lot of those business owners was phenomenal. And you know, one of those businesses, Bliss Books and Wine, they were at Lanisha and Lene were in our first cohort, and now they have their own brick and mortar, serving wine and selling books right off of Armour. And so it's just when you get to see those stories at the end of the day, you know, you wonder if it's worth it. And then you know, all you have to do is drive down the street and recognize, you know, it was worth it. Nothing about the organizational launch was surprising. I think what was more surprising is what we've been able to get accomplished to date. The things that we've been able to do and to grow the Porterhouse KC has been, I think that has been the biggest surprise for me. Like, we got full-time employee, Miranda, excited about that. We got a new space that we're in. We've been able to give out almost like maybe $500,000 over time in small business grants. We've graduated, you know, we have over 300 and something alumni at this point. I mean, all these things that wasn't even in our purview, you know, it's just a huge surprise for me. And so, yeah, just grateful to be where we are. We got a lot of work to do though. I'm a very simple person. I think simplicity wins. I think that don't take no as a final answer. Be tenacious, be ambitious, and just go to work. The more that you work at it, the more that you have, whatever if it's, you know, positive intention in mind, keep pushing. Again, you go back to The Alchemist. The Alchemist says, you know, things work in your favor as long as you are on the right journey. So if they're working in your favor, you know you're in the right journey, so don't stop. Even if it gets hard, don't stop. Even if, you know, you have multiple setbacks, don't stop. Keep pushing. That's it. It's simple. Simplicity wins. Don't stop. Keep pushing. That's it. No special sauce.